All right, good Thursday evening, everyone. Thanks for stopping by for a quick check of your forecast. Going to go ahead and share this with a few other locations, and then we'll go ahead and get things started. So we'll hang back here for just a couple of minutes, and then we'll get things going here, probably around 9:20 or so. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for stopping by for a check of the forecast. We have got a complex of thunderstorms making their way close to the state line between us and New Mexico. That is what we'll be watching really for the next several hours as we head into tomorrow morning. Some of this may still continue to persist. This is what we would call an MCS event, a mesoscale convective system. It's just a big group of thunderstorms, just a kind of a localized area where thunderstorm activity is likely to persist as it continues to work its way across the high plains. So this is something that we'll watch tonight, probably into the early hours of Friday morning. Currently, everything is below severe limits, which is really the expectation with this event. Really don't forecast us to see much severe weather, if any at all. But we could see some very heavy rainfall, and these are moving in an area where they've already had 1 to 3 inches of rain just over the last 24 hours. So the ground is saturated up there in parts of northeast New Mexico. That's why they have the aerial flood watch in effect, which will run through midnight tonight. And again, these storms are going to start to work their way into the Texas Panhandle as well as we head into the late evening hours. But again, right now, looks like a lot of that stuff's kind of falling around Tucumcari and then back up between Conchas and Ute, and then kind of bends back up towards Clayton, New Mexico, there in central Union County. And so all of this is moving to an easterly direction. We're even getting a little bit of some redevelopment there further to the south, closer towards House and Clovis, New Mexico. These storms may end up continuing to fill in. This is supposed to have mostly a west to east trajectory through the overnight hours tonight. We may even have to watch this storm out here. Could eventually provide a little bit of rain for places like Bushland and maybe even parts of Amarillo, depending on the exact track that it takes. But you can see, looks like a lot of that rain's going to be right there just south of Bushland here. Looks like another cell's kind of pulsed up recently out there over Paladura Canyon State Park. This stuff's generally drifting to the north at about 10 to 15 miles per hour. So not very fast movement. If you get caught under this, you'll see a lot of heavy rainfall. If you don't, you're just going to hear those rumbles of thunder. But we do have that thunderstorm out there to our southwest. This is what that storm looks like. You can see again getting kind of dark and ominous. That heavier rain actually a little bit further to the right. We'll go ahead and turn the camera just a wee bit for you guys. So the heavy rain just is kind of off there in the distance right there. You can see that opaque color, almost that white spot, and there's probably a little bit more rain there too. So it looks like there is a little bit of some rain filling in on that thing. We'll see if we can maybe get a better cluster of storms to push through the Amarillo area here, at least initially, before that next round tries to come through this evening. We may end up being on the south side of that boundary, or rather the south side of that MCS event here down I-40. So this primarily looks like it's going to be a North Panhandle event. If you're in Dimmitt, Tulia, Silverton, probably not going to see rain from that stuff that's coming out of New Mexico. It does look like it's going to favor the northern 3 rows of counties. So from Dallam, Hartley, and Oldham, east back up towards Lipscomb, Hemphill, and Wheeler County. So if you're kind of along and north of I-40, this is really the area that we think is going to have the best shot for rainfall, especially that western half of the North Panhandle. So these 6 counties up here, Dallam, Hartley, Oldham, Sherman, Moore, and Potter County look like they may have the best chance to cash in on some of this rain. So we will see exactly how much of Amarillo gets to benefit from this, just because I-40 kind of splits the city in half. But we may be on the outside looking in. If you're on the south side, you may see a little bit more rain up there towards Bishop Hills, up towards Boys Ranch. You can see that marginal risk a lot smaller now, really just confined to that northwest corner of our area. So this is really the only spot where there's marginally enough instability, marginally enough wind shear to sustain some kind of severe weather potential. The rest of these will probably stay below severe limits as they continue into tonight. So let's go ahead and run you through two different computer models. This is our in-house model, the Barron. We're going to take a look at it. It's got a little cluster of storms, but they're actually, if you look at radar, which we did, that storm complex is actually a little bit more pronounced than what you're seeing here on the computer model. So this might be underplaying how much rain we see overnight tonight, just a little bit, based off of what the radar looks like. So you can see that it has all that stuff falling apart as it works its way into the Panhandle. Then we get another round of isolated stuff out there near I-25 on Friday. Saturday, going to be kind of a hot day. Temperatures out in the East Panhandle going to be back up into the low 100s for the first time in a while. Actually, it could be the first time for some of us this year, which again is going to kind of translate to a hot stretch of weather next week as that ridge of high pressure builds in. Now I want to show you the high resolution rapid refresh model. This one I think is doing a better job at picking up on this big MCS that's out here. You can see again maybe some isolated stuff out there just west of Clovis, New Mexico that we have on radar. And you can see there's that complex from Tucumcari all the way up and then makes that C shape where it comes back towards Clayton, New Mexico. So this is probably going to be more realistic as to what we can expect through the next 5 to 7 hours. You can see at midnight tonight pushing into the western panhandles, and then by 2 a.m., 3 o'clock in the morning, this complex is falling apart and fragmenting, but it's still there, at least some remnants of it, as it's pushing across the central north panhandle from Amarillo to Dumas and Borger. Some of those stronger cells are going to be on the leading edge of that outflow boundary, and then you may get some of that stratiform rain behind it, at least for another hour or so. By 6 o'clock, it has mostly fragmented and dissolved, but we still may see a few residual showers right as the sun's coming up there in the northeast panhandle. As we get into tomorrow afternoon, it tries to fire a couple storms in New Mexico, but overall quiet weather. And then Saturday, same story. Maybe a few storms up in the northwest, but most of us don't have any kind of storm activity to deal with heading into this weekend. And that's just due to this ridge of high pressure that's going to continue to build in closer to the Lone Star State. This is something we've been talking about the last couple of days. This ridge may not set up directly over the panhandles or directly over Texas, but it's going to get close enough that our heights aloft are going to rise. That just means that temperatures are going to go up. We could get hot enough to maybe even see some triple-digit heat early next week. Sunday and Monday in particular look to be maybe those two best chance days for triple digits here in Amarillo. It is not a guarantee, but it is possible. The further east you go, closer to that high, probably the hotter the weather will be early next week. The further west you go, you may actually fall into still a semi-active pattern. You may not see above average precipitation, but you may get what we call those ridge riding disturbances that come up and over that high pressure, and that's where you'll start to see those sporadic rain chances. It's not going to be a slam dunk for rain, but you will see some isolated storms probably next week, at least over in New Mexico. We might get a couple in the panhandles. It's just going to come down to where exactly that ridge of high pressure sets up. But generally speaking, further east you get from here, the closer you're going to be to the center of high pressure. You can see again, there's a really high probability that areas like Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, they're going to see really the heart of this above average heat out there just due to that dome of high pressure. And then you've got this, really positively tilted trough that you saw earlier on the next weather maker graphic. Again, that's just going to probably bring some cooler than normal conditions for places like California out there. So let's go ahead and take a look at your 7-day tracker. We'll jump back over to radar before we let you go to the rest of your evening. 95 on Friday, so a little bit above normal. 99 Saturday, likely at or just above triple digit heat for most of the eastern panhandles. From Amarillo west, it's going to be a little bit more conditional. Areas like Tucumcari, Adrian, Dalhart, Hartley, you guys may actually only still get into the mid upper 90s, so a little bit warmer than normal, but nothing crazy in terms of that heat. But we will see probably some stress on some of the vegetation and the crops. Your body, if you're out there for a long duration of time, you'll start to experience some heat-related illnesses and some stress on the body. So just make sure you stay hydrated if you're going to be out this weekend. Make sure that you're pacing yourself if out in the middle of the afternoon. Again, if you want to do some strenuous stuff, try and do it in the early part of the day when it's not so hot. So that is all we've got for you as far as the forecast is concerned. Let's jump real quick back over to radar just to show you where these storms are at and kind of where we think they are headed. Generally speaking, they are moving east. So this big complex here going to be moving probably along and north of I-40 primarily, probably a little bit more broken storm coverage down the interstate, a better complex coming through just north of Ute, up there in Ute Creek. Again, they're going to see some heavy rain here. They just had 2 to 5 inches of rain there yesterday. They could get another 1 to 3 inches of rain tonight. A lot of that's going to run off into Ute Lake. This is going to continue to track down the Canadian River, so that will probably still put a little bit of water in Meredith anyway, but those totals for highest precipitation amounts still look like you're going to be out here in New Mexico. An exception might be some of these cells popping up here. If we get these plus that stuff in New Mexico, then we might have a chance for some higher localized totals here closer to the city. But currently, this storm right here looks like it's going to move mostly on the west side of town, closer to Bushland. You guys may end up with a pretty good downpour here over the next half hour. This storm does look like it is weakening, or at least trying to. Again, that outflow boundary is racing out ahead of it, which usually is a good sign that it's about to collapse as it runs into some more stable air. But we got some other cells pulsing up out here on the southeast side of Randall County and the north side of Swisher County too. So there's still a few thunderstorms just kind of working their way through the South Panhandle right now. That's pretty much all we got. I think we're going to let you guys go. Again, these storms are below severe limits, even though we do have technically that marginal risk. We did just get that aerial flood advisory out there. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at that from the National Weather Service. Umbarger has picked up 9/10 of an inch of rain in 25 minutes from this little lone thunderstorm out here. So, I mean, that's about a 2-inch an hour rain rate. Definitely going to see some high precipitation volume in a short duration. So again, flooding is going to be the biggest concern. Let's go ahead and find that aerial flood advisory. Yeah, so between 3/4 of an inch and 1.5 inches of rain have already fallen today. A significant rainfall has occurred on top of areas that received significant rainfall last night. Additional rainfall amounts of a 1/2 inch are expected. Localized amounts up to 1 inch possible still. So again, some of these areas have already seen, a 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches of rain. Could see another 1/2 inch of rain in some of these areas that are highlighted, but you probably could see some pockets of 1 to 2 inches of rain from this cluster of storms moving through the east side of New Mexico up there in Hardin County. These are going to be moving through Union and Quay County here, at least the northern half of Quay County over the next hour or two. So normally dry creek beds and streams, probably going to start to catch a little bit of some runoff and water. Just keep that in mind. Campers, places, right there near the rivers, make sure that you are paying attention. You could see some water rise quickly. Again, it's some pretty rough terrain and topography there. So all of that water gets funneled into a narrow canyon very quick. And so again, the water can rise fairly quickly. But I think that's all we've got. We're going to end your Facebook Live or your YouTube Live here real quick. If anything does go severe, we will keep you up to date, but we probably won't do a full-fledged live just with how, sub-severe some of these